also, as you get older, no, that's, okay. So AIM teams, they're coming to people who are different. So they're actually, if you go on a trip, right, a short-term missions trip, what are you meeting? You're meeting number 2, right, because it's increasing. It's more than just your everyday life. You're meeting number 3 because you're going to people that are different than you, that you wouldn't normally associate with. And sometimes if you go to another place, you're going to number 4. Because, you know, like when I was in high school, I went on a missions trip, an AIM trip to Grand Cayman, which is now out in the Caribbean. Let me tell you, we suffered for Jesus on those beaches. And we really did. Like, I couldn't even go swimming because I was dressed up as a clown for children's ministry. So there I was sitting there on the beach looking at everybody else swim, and I couldn't swim. But the rest of the group got to swim. And I love to do it because, you know, I didn't go there to swim. They have beaches in Boston. Okay, and so some of us are called personally to the mission everywhere, to the ends of the earth. And we can't neglect to talk about this, okay? And there's 3 ways that all of us are called to mission everywhere, specifically in going. We're all called to the other 2 parts I'm going to talk about, right? But we're talking about going now. And there's 3 ways that we're called to go to mission everywhere. Number 1 is that technically, Charlotte, North Carolina is everywhere. Because when Jesus said this, he was in Jerusalem, right? So technically, we're at the ends of the earth. We're pretty far from Jerusalem, okay? So technically speaking, everywhere in the world is part of the ends of the earth now. So if you're in Charlotte, North Carolina, reaching your friends who are in school or reaching your family members, technically you're reaching people on the ends of the earth. When Jesus said this, my ancestors in England were nothing but a savage tribe of people. We were the uncivilized savages of that time. And eventually, you know, the Romans came over and conquered us and made us civilized. And then, apparently, they thought it was their job to go around and civilize the rest of the world. Okay? So, you know, not only Vietnam, not only other parts of the world, but even Germany and France and what do they call it? Gaul back then, right? And Britain, they were all just unreached, savage tribes. And so we're all the ends of the earth, okay? So anything that you do is ends of. So that's the first way. Number 2, you may be called to go short-term to the ends of the earth. And what I mean by that is maybe God will call you to go on a short-term missions trip. My friend Denise, who knows who Denise is now? She has gone every year for the last couple of years to Haiti, and she works with a particular organization, and she goes back with them, and they do outreach to the children there, and they're building a church, and they do some medical trips, and they do all kinds of trips, and she participates. Well, now she's not going to ever, I hope, move to Haiti. Okay, that's not in her plan right now. But she regularly, for the past probably, I mean, she's gone to Haiti for 2 years, but before that she's gone to other places. She regularly goes to different countries. I talked to a guy this week at my workplace. You know what he does? He's a garage door service guy. And I just mentioned to him that I was a pastor, that we were about to get off the phone. He says, really? I said, yeah. And he said, well, you know, this business, I do it so that I can take a lot of time off. And, you know, 4 or 5 times a year, I go for 2 or 3 weeks to different countries and do missions trips. Yeah, and so you could go through AIM, or when you grow up, you know, the Assemblies of God has a program where you can go for 1 or 2 years of your life as a missionary. And you don't even have to, like, I mean, you can study Bible and go like that. You know what? I knew one guy that went, and you know what he did? He homeschooled the missionaries' kids so they could go out and spread the gospel. And it's just a short-term thing. It doesn't mean this is going to be my whole life. So God calls, probably I would say, all of us to mission everywhere in the sense that, you know, we're here, right? Okay? And most of you, hopefully all of you, will at some point go to the ends of the earth, go to a place where you have, you know, a foreign country and do something to spread the kingdom of God there. It doesn't mean it's going to be your lifelong goal. Now, here's the third way, is God does call some people to go full-time, permanently, it's their life, to another country. Okay? And to spread the good news there. And we call that career missionaries. That's just our title for it. And what it means is, it means that that's it, that's my life. And I know plenty of people like that. One of the friends I went to college with, they just got, I think they got there, either that or they're just about to go to Mozambique, Africa, which has been on their heart for 10, 15 years. And they had to make a trip to another country for a while to train, because Mozambique is really, they had a lot of wars and stuff, and it's not an easy place to live. And so they had to train in another not-so-easy country, but at least there were other people there that could help them. But they're finally getting, and they plan to spend the rest of their life living in Mozambique. They'll go there for 4 years, come back for a year to raise money, go there for 4 years. I have a professor from high school, from college, who is a missionary in, pause the tape. Because sometimes, some of you may be called to permanently, full-time, go to the ends of the earth. And we don't want to miss out on that, because the other two things we're going to talk about besides going, they don't work unless somebody goes. Right? How can they believe if they don't know about Him? And how can they know about Him if nobody tells them? So somebody has to go. And it's your responsibility to ask God, not, oh God, please don't let me be one of the ones to go, right? But instead, oh God, please, can I be one of the ones to go? Because you know what? When people join together and pray for the world, that's when God starts to call people to go to the world. And He starts to say, yes, as a matter of fact, I do want to save the world. Go. So, be ready. Be ready to accept it, okay? To accept the call. So, now, what does this have to do with us? Right? I mean, let's face it, most of us are not going to be full-time career missionaries living overseas for the rest of our lives. Most of us won't be. So why do I bother to tell you all this? What does it have to do with us? I'm glad you asked. In Romans 10, 13, and 14, let's stand up and read. Romans chapter 10, verses 13 and 14. And this is the same thing we read last week. 7 minutes I have left. Oh, good thing I only wrote 2 pages. Romans chapter 10, verses 13 and 14. Let's read together. For anyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. But how can they call on Him to save them unless they believe in Him? And how can they believe in Him if they have never heard about Him? And how can they hear about Him unless someone tells them? Don't close the Bible. Okay. What are you still reading for? Huh? Oh. Okay, listen, I gotta say one thing, and I'm going to read a little bit more. Okay, ready? Yeah. If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. If you're not a missionary, you're still part of the mission field. If you're not a missionary in some way, you're still a part of the mission field. What does that mean? If you're not reaching other people, you still need to be reached. So we all need to be missionaries in that sense. We don't all need to be career missionaries, but we all need to be missionaries. Now ready? Here goes Romans chapter 10, verse 15. Read it as loud as you can with me. And how will anyone go and tell them without being sent? That is what the Scriptures mean when they say, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news. You may be seated. So that's the last part of the equation. I intentionally left it off last week because I knew we didn't have time to talk about sending last week, okay? But how can they believe in Him? How can they call on Him if they don't believe in Him? How can they believe in Him if they don't know about Him? How can they know about Him if nobody tells them about Him? And ready, here's the big part. This is how you fit in. How can anybody go and tell them if nobody sends them to do it? And so how can every one of us be missionaries? How can every one of us be involved in the mission? Well, number one, important. I'm going to say it again because it's that important. You have to go yourself. You have to do the mission every day. You have to do the mission ever increasing. And you have to do part of the mission everybody. I mean, but everybody does mean everybody, so you can't quite hit everybody. Right? But you have to go. You have to spread the good news. Because last time I checked, they didn't accept missionaries from other countries to come into the high schools in the U.S. and spread the gospel. You're the only missionaries that can go to your school. And last time I checked, most of your families who are not saved didn't invite missionaries to come into the house and tell them about Jesus. And unfortunately, if they do, because the church isn't doing their